Imagine a device so advanced, so precise, it could predict the movement of the stars, the phases of the moon, and even the dates of ancient Olympic Games, all crafted more than 2,000 years ago. This isn't science fiction. It's the Antikythera mechanism, often called the world's first computer. A bronze marvel of gears and dials, it's a puzzle that has baffled scientists and historians for over a century. Who built this astonishing machine? How did ancient hands create something so complex it wouldn't be matched for another 1,000 years? And why was such a technological masterpiece lost to history, only to resurface in the most unexpected way? The story begins in the warm waters off the coast of a tiny Greek island called Antikythera. In the year 1901, a group of sponge divers searching the ocean floor stumbled upon a shipwreck. But this wasn't just any wreck. Amid statues and pottery, they pulled up a lump of corroded bronze, its gears fused together by centuries under the sea. At first glance, it seemed unremarkable, just another artifact. But when researchers finally peered inside, they realized they were holding something extraordinary. This wasn't a simple tool or decoration. It was a machine of staggering complexity, a device that defied everything we thought we knew about ancient technology. The Antikythera mechanism shouldn't have existed, and yet there it was. What makes this discovery even more thrilling is the mystery that surrounds it. No records mention its creation, no ancient texts describe its purpose. The people who built it left no signatures, no clues to their identities. It's as if this incredible device appeared out of nowhere, a ghost from the past challenging our understanding of history. Was it the work of a lone genius, a secretive school of inventors, or perhaps something even more unexpected? Over the years, every new revelation about the mechanism has only deepened the enigma. And that's what we're diving into today, the astonishing secrets of the Antikythera mechanism, the questions that still haunt researchers, and the tantalizing possibilities of who might have crafted this ancient wonder. This is a story of human ingenuity, lost knowledge, and a puzzle that's still far from solved. So let's unravel it together. The Mediterranean had kept its secret for nearly 2,000 years. When those sponge divers surfaced with their strange bronze find in 1901, no one could have guessed they'd pulled up one of history's greatest mysteries. The artifact emerged from the wreckage encased in centuries of calcified sea crust, a lumpy, greenish mass that looked more like a chunk of rubble than a technological marvel. At the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, it sat quietly among more obviously precious treasures, statues with missing limbs, amphorae still smelling of ancient wine. For months it gathered dust in storage, dismissed as just another corroded relic. Then, one day, a sharp-eyed archaeologist noticed something peculiar. A crack in the crust revealed a glint of metal, not solid but segmented. The lump wasn't random debris. Inside were gears. The moment of realization must have been electrifying. As conservators carefully chipped away the limestone-like buildup, an intricate clockwork assembly emerged, delicate bronze wheels interlocking with mathematical precision, tiny teeth meshing like the workings of a modern watch. But this wasn't modern. Carbon dating placed it somewhere between 260 and 200 BC, a time when Rome was still a rising power and Archimedes hadn't yet drawn his last breath in the sand. How could such advanced engineering exist in an era when most technology relied on levers and pulleys? The fragments told a tantalizing story. A main drive wheel connected to at least 37 precisely calibrated gears, some with as many as 223 teeth cut by hand. This wasn't just a machine, it was a masterpiece. Modern imaging techniques would later reveal inscriptions hidden beneath the corrosion, faded Greek letters spelling out celestial terms: Venus, eclipse, Olympiad. But in those early days, researchers could only stare in awe at the physical evidence. The shipwreck itself added another layer of intrigue. Located nearly 150 feet below the surface, the vessel likely carried looted treasures from Greek islands to Rome when it sank. Was this mechanism a wealthy Roman's curiosity, a scholar's prized possession, or something even rarer, a prototype of knowledge that disappeared when the Library of Alexandria burned? Every salvage dive since has brought new fragments to light, yet the sea still guards its secrets. Somewhere in those azure depths, more pieces of this ancient puzzle may still lie buried, waiting to shift our understanding of history once again. When the Antikythera mechanism first came into the hands of researchers, their reactions swung between disbelief and wonder. Some dismissed it outright, convinced the intricate gears must have slipped into the wreckage from a later era. After all, nothing like it had ever been found among ancient artifacts. The idea that Hellenistic craftsmen could have engineered something so precise seemed almost laughable. One prominent historian of the early 20th century famously called it an outlier that defies explanation, while another muttered it was as out of place as a pocket watch in a pharaoh's tomb. To scholars steeped in the belief that complex machinery was a medieval or Renaissance innovation, this bronze enigma was an affront to their understanding of history. But as more fragments were cleaned and examined, skepticism gave way to stunned admiration. The gears weren't just decorative, they formed a functional system, a miniature cosmos of interlocking wheels designed to mimic celestial motion. Derek de Solla Price, a historian of science who studied the mechanism in the 1950s, later wrote that encountering it was like finding a jet engine in the tomb of King Tut. The sheer precision of its engineering was staggering. Each gear tooth had been painstakingly cut by hand, yet their spacing was so exact that the device could track the moon's irregular orbit, a feat requiring advanced knowledge of astronomy and mathematics. Today, with high-resolution imaging and three-dimensional modeling, we've peeled back even more layers of its brilliance. Modern reconstructions show it wasn't just a planetarium or eclipse predictor, it was a multi-functional marvel. A tiny dial tracked the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games, while another calculated the timing of ancient athletic festivals. The front face displayed the Greek zodiac with pointers tracing the paths of the sun, moon, and 5 known planets. And here's the astonishing part. It even accounted for celestial anomalies like the moon's elliptical orbit, using a clever pin and slot mechanism that mimicked the subtle speeding up and slowing down of its motion. What's striking is how modern perspectives have shifted the narrative. Early 20th century experts saw the mechanism as an inexplicable fluke. Now it's recognized as a testament to a lost golden age of Greek innovation. Scholars like Alexander Jones point to tantalizing hints in ancient texts, passages by Cicero mentioning a device built by Archimedes that reproduced the motions of the heavens, or vague references to celestial globes in the writings of Posidonius. Could the Antikythera mechanism be a rare survivor of a once thriving tradition of mechanical craftsmanship? The more we learn, the clearer it becomes. This wasn't a one-off miracle. It was likely the pinnacle of a forgotten technological lineage, a glimpse of how much knowledge vanished when classical civilizations crumbled. Now consider the implications. If something this sophisticated existed over 2 millennia ago, what else might have been possible? The mechanism forces us to rewrite the story of human ingenuity, proving that the seeds of mechanical genius were planted far earlier than we ever imagined. And yet, the most haunting question lingers: how many other wonders like this were lost to time, leaving no trace behind? The true genius of the Antikythera mechanism lies in its mechanical sophistication, a labyrinth of interlocking bronze gears that would make even modern engineers pause in admiration. At its heart, over 30 precisely crafted wheels worked in harmony, each tooth painstakingly filed by hand to tolerances that rival early industrial-era machinery. Among these gears, one stands out as particularly revolutionary: the differential gear. Before this discovery, historians credited its invention to the 18th century, a component essential for modern car axles and clockmaking. Yet here it was, nestled inside a 2,000-year-old relic, performing calculations so advanced it could account for the moon's elliptical orbit, a subtlety ancient astronomers knew but shouldn't have been able to mechanically replicate. Picture the intricacy of these components. The largest gear, likely driven by a hand crank, boasted 223 teeth, each spaced within fractions of a millimeter of perfection. This main drive wheel connected to a series of smaller gears, their ratios carefully calibrated to mirror the erratic dance of celestial bodies. One assembly tracked the moon's motion, incorporating a brilliant pin and slot mechanism that simulated its periodic speed changes, an innovation so nuanced it wouldn't reappear in clock designs until the 1400s. Another set of gears calculated the positions of the 5 known planets, their retrograde motions woven into the machine's logic with mathematical elegance. But the mechanism's most jaw-dropping feat was its ability to predict eclipses. A dedicated dial, dubbed the Saros cycle by researchers, acted as an ancient eclipse calculator, foretelling lunar and solar eclipses decades in advance. The Greeks believed eclipses were omens, moments when the gods intervened in human affairs. With this device, a priest or scholar could read the will of the heavens, turning celestial chaos into a schedule etched in bronze. To grasp how groundbreaking this was, consider the context. In the same era, most Mediterranean cultures relied on simple sundials or water clocks. Yet somewhere, perhaps in a workshop in Rhodes or Syracuse, a group of artisans melded astronomy, metallurgy, and mechanics into a single device. The differential gear alone hints at lost knowledge. Its presence suggests this wasn't a fluke but part of a broader technological tradition. Modern reconstructions, aided by CT scans and 3D modeling, reveal just how tightly packed these mechanisms were. The entire assembly fit inside a wooden case no larger than a shoebox, its front and back faces crowded with dials and inscriptions. Turning the crank set the gears in motion, pointers sweeping across zodiac scales like the hands of a cosmic clock. It's no exaggeration to call this the first known analog computer, a machine that didn't just track time but modeled the universe itself. What's haunting is how much we still don't know. Surviving fragments account for perhaps 3/4 of the original device. Were there additional gears predicting comets or simulating planetary conjunctions? Every new scan uncovers deeper layers of complexity, each cog a silent testament to minds who saw the heavens not as a mystery, but as a system waiting to be decoded. In that sense, the Antikythera mechanism isn't just a relic. It's a bridge between ancient wonder and modern science, a reminder that curiosity has always been humanity's most powerful tool. The Antikythera mechanism wasn't just a technological marvel. It was a window into the cosmos, a handheld universe that bridged the practical and the divine. On its front face, delicate pointers traced the sun's journey through the zodiac, while the moon's phases played out with uncanny accuracy. But this was no mere planetarium. Hidden within its bronze framework were dual systems so advanced they could serve as both an astronomical calculator and a sacred calendar, synchronizing human events with celestial rhythms. One of its most ingenious functions was its Olympic dial, a small, unassuming scale that tracked the 4-year cycle of the ancient games. For Greeks, the Olympics were more than athletic contests. They marked time itself, dividing history into Olympiads just as we use centuries today. With a simple turn of the mechanism's crank, a pointer advanced along the dial, counting down the months until the next festival. Imagine the awe of holding a device that not only predicted the next eclipse but also reminded you when to prepare for the greatest spectacle of the ancient world. Equally fascinating was its Egyptian calendar, a system far older than the mechanism itself. While the Greeks used lunar months, Egypt's solar calendar, 365 days long, was vital for agriculture and rituals. The mechanism reconciled these two systems, displaying both simultaneously through interlocking gears. This wasn't just engineering, it was diplomacy in bronze, a tool that could speak to scholars from Alexandria to Rhodes in their own chronological language. Modern CGI reconstructions bring these functions to life, revealing how the front dial's concentric rings depicted the Greek zodiac and Egyptian calendar side by side. The back, meanwhile, housed the Saros eclipse cycle and the spiral metonic dial, which harmonized lunar and solar years over a 19-year period. Watching these dials spin is like peering over the shoulder of an ancient astronomer, witnessing their attempt to compress the vastness of time into the palm of their hand. What's striking is how seamlessly the mechanism blended science and culture. It didn't just calculate, it connected. The same gears that predicted planetary positions also timed religious festivals, linking celestial events to human traditions. This duality hints at a profound worldview, one where the heavens weren't distant but intimately woven into daily life, and that's the real wonder of the Antikythera mechanism. It wasn't just a machine, it was a mirror reflecting how its creators saw the universe orderly, interconnected, and alive with meaning. Pinpointing the Antikythera mechanism's origins is like assembling a cosmic puzzle. Each clue reveals another fragment of its astonishing past. The wreck itself provides crucial hints. Among the salvaged artifacts, coins minted between 86 and 67 BC helped anchor the ship's final voyage to the 1st century BC. But the mechanism is likely older, a treasured item on board rather than a contemporary creation. Radiocarbon dating of organic residues trapped in its corroded layers suggests it was crafted between 260 and 200 BC, a window when Greek astronomy and engineering were flourishing under scholars like Hipparchus. The real smoking gun, though, lies in the device's inscriptions. Faint Greek letters etched into its bronze surfaces follow the Corinthian calendar, a system used primarily in Syracuse and Rhodes, both renowned centers of scientific thought. The handwriting style matches other texts from around 150 BC, placing it squarely in the Hellenistic Golden Age. These aren't just labels, they're celestial terminology, terms like spiral and stationary point that reveal a deep understanding of planetary motion. Yet here's the paradox: while the mechanism's sophistication aligns with the astronomical breakthroughs of its era, not a single ancient text mentions anything like it. Hipparchus's theories on lunar motion are eerily mirrored in the device's gears, yet he never wrote of such a machine. Cicero's vague reference to a sphere of Archimedes that replicated the heavens is the closest we get, and even that's more poetic than technical. Why the silence? One theory suggests these mechanisms were rare, treasured secrets of elite scholars or temples. Another posits that the knowledge required to build them was so specialized it died with its creators, perhaps in the destruction of Alexandria's great library. Or maybe the answer is simpler. To ancient chroniclers, a device predicting eclipses wasn't technology. It was magic unworthy of the historical record. Whatever the reason, the Antikythera mechanism stands as a ghost of a lost tradition, whispering that history's pages are far from complete. The Antikythera mechanism didn't travel alone. When it sank beneath the waves, it was nestled among a trove of luxury goods, marble statues frozen in mid-motion, delicate glassware that shimmered like captured sunlight, and bronze sculptures so lifelike they seemed to breathe. These weren't the belongings of common traders. This was a cargo fit for a Roman aristocrat, a collection of plundered treasures ripped from Greek cities and bound for the villas of Italy's elite. The wreck itself tells a story of conquest and cultural pillage. Among the artifacts, archaeologists unearthed a stunning bronze statue known as the Antikythera Youth, its muscular form echoing the style of 4th century BC Greek masters. Nearby lay fragments of ornate furniture, gold jewelry, and even a lyre, a symphony of wealth hastily packed onto a single ship. This opulent context offers crucial clues about the mechanism's journey. Historical records suggest that after Rome conquered Greece in 146 BC, victorious generals shipped countless artworks and curiosities back to Italy as spoils of war. The vessel's route likely traced a path from Rhodes, a thriving hub of astronomy and engineering, toward Rome's bustling ports. Rhodes was home to famed astronomers like Hipparchus, whose theories on lunar motion align eerily with the mechanism's gears. Could this device have been crafted in a Rhodian workshop, only to be seized by Roman soldiers during one of their raids? The ship's cargo holds another tantalizing hint: amphorae stamped with wine labels from the island of Kos, just north of Rhodes. These wine jars weren't just provisions, they were status symbols, the ancient equivalent of vintage champagne. Why does this matter? Because it tightens the noose around the mechanism's origins. Rhodes in the 2nd century BC was a nexus of scientific innovation, where mathematicians and craftsmen collaborated under the patronage of wealthy elites. The island's famed colossus may have fallen centuries earlier, but its legacy as a center of learning endured. If the mechanism was indeed Rhodian, it wasn't some lone genius's creation. It was the product of a vibrant intellectual ecosystem, a place where astronomy and engineering intertwined. The wreck's location, halfway between Rhodes and Rome, suggests the device was already decades old when it sank, perhaps a prized heirloom looted from a scholar's estate. But there's a darker twist. The ship's heavy cargo of statues implies it wasn't just carrying loot, it might have been overloaded, a factor that could explain its disastrous sinking. Imagine the scene: a storm rising, the vessel listing under the weight of marble and bronze, the mechanism's delicate gears sealed in a wooden crate as seawater surged through the hull. The irony is palpable. A device built to predict celestial events couldn't foresee its own fate, lost for millennia until chance brought it back into the light. And yet, the wreck's very opulence raises haunting questions. If this was Roman plunder, how many other marvels like the Antikythera Mechanism were carted off to private collections, only to crumble into dust? The ancient world was full of wonders we'll never know, gadgets and inventions lost to war, fire, or the simple passage of time. The mechanism is the exception, a survivor. Its companions on that doomed ship, statues of gods and athletes, were meant to dazzle Roman crowds, but the true treasure, the one that would rewrite history, lay unrecognized for 2,000 years, waiting for an age that could finally appreciate its genius. Among the tangled gears and faded inscriptions of the Antikythera Mechanism lies a celestial fingerprint, one that points unmistakably toward the island of Rhodes. The device's calculations align precisely with the theories of Hipparchus, the revolutionary astronomer who worked there in the 2nd century BC. His groundbreaking discovery of the moon's elliptical orbit with its subtle speed variations is mirrored perfectly in the mechanism's pin and slot gear system, an engineering solution so specific it's like finding a signature hidden in bronze. Rhodes wasn't just a scenic island dotted with temples. It was the Silicon Valley of the ancient world, a buzzing hive of innovation where mathematicians, astronomers, and master craftsmen collaborated under the patronage of wealthy elites. The famed Colossus, one of the 7 wonders, had once straddled its harbor, a testament to Rhodian engineering ambition, but the island's legacy ran deeper than statues. Ancient texts whisper of automata built by Rhodian inventors, mechanical birds that sang, self-propelled carts, even a theater with moving parts that reenacted mythological scenes. Imagine a culture where engineering wasn't just practical but theatrical, where bronze and gears became a language for both science and spectacle. The connection to Hipparchus is tantalizing. Before his time, Greek astronomers assumed celestial bodies moved in perfect circles, but Hipparchus noticed irregularities, particularly in the moon's orbit, and developed mathematical models to account for them. The Antikythera Mechanisms' gears embody these very calculations, translating abstract theory into tangible motion. It's as if someone took Hipparchus's notes and forged them into metal. Yet here's the twist: no surviving records link him directly to mechanical devices. Did he collaborate with Rhodian artisans to bring his theories to life? Or did a brilliant craftsman, inspired by his work, build this intricate homage to the heavens? Rhodes's reputation as a center of craftsmanship adds weight to the theory. The island was renowned for its bronze work, with foundries capable of casting precision gears. Its naval dominance also made it a crossroads of knowledge, where Egyptian calendar systems met Greek astronomy, exactly the blend seen in the mechanism's dual timekeeping functions. Even the device's Corinthian-style lettering, used in Rhodian inscriptions, fits the puzzle, but the most telling clue might be what's missing. When Rome sacked Rhodes in 43 BC, countless treasures were hauled away, yet most of the island's intellectual achievements faded into obscurity. The Antikythera mechanism, perhaps salvaged from a scholar's plundered workshop, could be a lone survivor of a tradition that vanished overnight. Its gears don't just track celestial cycles, they silently echo the rhythm of a lost world, one where the boundaries between science, art, and mythology blurred into something extraordinary. What emerges isn't just the story of a single device, but of an entire ecosystem of innovation. Rhodes gives us a plausible birthplace, Hipparchus the intellectual blueprint, and the mechanism itself, a time capsule from an age when humanity first dared to build a mirror for the cosmos. Hipparchus of Rhodes wasn't just an astronomer, he was a cosmic cartographer, mapping the heavens with a precision that wouldn't be matched for centuries. His greatest breakthrough came when he noticed something strange about the moon's motion. While most Greek scholars believed celestial bodies moved in perfect circles, Hipparchus observed irregularities, subtle speed changes as the moon orbited Earth. He calculated these variations mathematically, describing an elliptical orbit long before Kepler formalized the idea. Now here's where it gets fascinating. The Antikythera Mechanisms gears replicate this exact phenomenon through a pin and slot device that mimics the moon's speeding up and slowing down. The correlation is too precise to be coincidence. Gear ratios in the machine correspond to Hipparchus's calculations down to astonishing decimal points, as if someone took his equations and forged them into bronze. Yet skeptics raise a valid question. Hipparchus left no records of engineering work. His surviving writings focus on stargazing and geometry, not gear trains. Could he really have designed something as mechanically intricate as the Antikythera mechanism? The answer might lie in Rhodes' collaborative culture. The island was a melting pot where theorists like Hipparchus rubbed shoulders with master artisans in bronze foundries. Imagine a workshop where astronomers sketched celestial patterns on papyrus while craftsmen translated them into interlocking gears, a meeting of minds that bridged abstract science and hands-on craftsmanship. We know from ancient accounts that Hipparchus owned celestial globes, three-dimensional models of the heavens. Could the mechanism be a natural evolution of these tools, a dynamic globe brought to life through Rhodian engineering? What's often overlooked is how Hipparchus's lunar theory was radical for its time. Mainstream Greek astronomy held stubbornly to perfect circular motion, a belief rooted in Plato's philosophy. For Hipparchus to publicly champion elliptical orbits required both courage and meticulous evidence. The Antikythera Mechanisms gears quietly vindicate him. Their very design proves someone not only accepted his controversial ideas but invested immense skill to demonstrate them physically. This wasn't just academic debate, it was a mechanical manifesto, a working model that made the invisible mathematics of the heavens tangible. The counter-arguments fade when we consider how knowledge was transmitted in antiquity. Great thinkers often dictated ideas to disciples who expanded upon them. Hipparchus might have provided the astronomical data while Rhodian metalworkers, renowned for intricate automatons, handled the engineering. The mechanism's Corinthian-style inscriptions even hint at this division of labor, blending scientific terminology with artisanal craftsmanship. What emerges is a compelling case for Hipparchus's intellectual fingerprints on the device, if not his literal chisel marks. The gears don't just align with his theories, they celebrate them, turning abstract calculations into a symphony of rotating bronze. In a world before patents or publish or perish pressure, perhaps this was how revolutionary ideas gained traction, not through journals but through jaw-dropping demonstrations that left observers whispering, "How did they do that?" The Antikythera mechanism might be the closest thing we have to Hipparchus's lost masterpiece, a silent collaborator spinning his legacy through the centuries. But Hipparchus isn't the only Rhodian genius who might have left his mark on the Antikythera mechanism. Enter Posidonius, a philosopher, astronomer, and perhaps most intriguingly, the owner of a device Cicero described as a sphere that showed the motions of the sun, moon, and planets. Born in Apamea but deeply connected to Rhodes, Posidonius ran a famed school where celestial instruments weren't just theoretical tools but tangible objects of study. His maritime travels and knack for blending disciplines made him the ideal candidate to spearhead a project as ambitious as the Antikythera mechanism. Cicero's writings offer the clearest thread linking Posidonius to such a device. In his dialogue on the Republic, he recounts seeing a bronze sphere in Posidonius's possession that replicated the heavens with eerie accuracy, a sort of artificial sky, as Cicero put it. The description mirrors the Antikythera mechanism's function so closely it's hard to dismiss as coincidence. Unlike Hipparchus, Posidonius had a reputation for hands-on experimentation. He measured ocean depths, studied tides, and even attempted to calculate the distance to the stars. This wasn't a scholar content with parchment and ink. He was a bridge builder between theory and mechanics, the kind of mind who'd see the value in turning astronomy into something you could hold. What strengthens the case for Posidonius's involvement is the mechanism's dual focus on prediction and education. Its dials didn't just track celestial events, they served as teaching tools, visualizing concepts like eclipse cycles and planetary retrogradation. Posidonius's school was legendary for its observational approach, attracting Roman elites eager to grasp the cosmos. A portable planetarium would have been the ultimate lecture aid, dazzling students while demystifying the heavens, yet there's a wrinkle in this theory. The shipwreck's radiocarbon dating suggests the mechanism predates Posidonius's prime by at least a generation. Could it have been an heirloom he inherited, studied, and refined? Rhodes's workshops were hubs of iterative innovation where devices might evolve over decades. The mechanism's later modifications, evidence of repairs and recalculations, hint at a life spanning multiple owners. If Posidonius didn't build it, he almost certainly knew its secrets, perhaps even trained the craftsmen who maintained it. The debate between Hipparchian and Posidonian origins isn't just academic pedantry. It reflects two visions of ancient science, one rooted in pure mathematics, the other in hands-on exploration. The truth might lie in collaboration, a celestial calculator born from Hipparchus's theories, perfected by Rhodian artisans, and showcased by Posidonius as a crown jewel of Hellenistic ingenuity. What's undeniable is that Rhodes, with its convergence of thinkers and tinkerers, was the perfect incubator for such a marvel. The Antikythera mechanism doesn't just bear the fingerprints of individual genius. It's a testament to an entire island's obsession with decoding the universe. Archimedes' name looms large over the Antikythera mechanism, not just because of his genius, but because of the ghostly parallels between this device and inventions he was said to have crafted. Ancient historians like Cicero and Claudian wrote of a celestial globe built by Archimedes that held the movements of the heavens in bronze, a description chillingly similar to the mechanism's functions. But here's the puzzle. Archimedes died decades before the shipwreck's estimated sinking, and over a century before the mechanism's likely creation. How could his designs influence a device made so long after his death? The answer may lie in a web of knowledge stretching from Syracuse to Rhodes, carried by scholars who preserved and expanded upon his legacy. Syracuse, Archimedes' home, was a beacon of innovation in the 3rd century BC. His workshop reportedly produced mechanical marvels, planetariums that mimicked celestial motions, water pumps still used today, even legendary war machines that held off Roman fleets. When Roman general Marcellus sacked Syracuse in 212 BC, his soldiers were under strict orders to spare the aging mathematician. Yet a nameless legionary killed him during the chaos, ending a life but not his ideas. Historical accounts suggest Marcellus shipped two of Archimedes' famed spheres to Rome as trophies, where they fascinated audiences for generations. One was a simple star map, but the other was far more sophisticated, a working model of the cosmos with moving parts that displayed eclipses and planetary orbits. This is where Rhodes enters the story. After Syracuse's fall, many Greek scholars fled eastward, carrying scrolls and blueprints to safer hubs of learning. Rhodes, with its famed academy and thriving artisan community, became a natural sanctuary for this knowledge. Hipparchus, who likely influenced the mechanisms astronomy, studied in Alexandria but spent crucial years on Rhodes, an island where Archimedean ideas could have lingered in workshops. The mechanism's differential gear, far ahead of its time, echoes Archimedes' known fascination with compound pulley systems and mechanical advantage. Even its Corinthian lettering hints at Syracuse, a Corinthian colony where that script was common. But the most compelling evidence isn't technical, it's cultural. Cicero describes seeing Archimedes' sphere in the home of Roman general Marcus Claudius Marcellus, grandson of Syracuse's conqueror. He marveled that this ancient invention could outperform simpler models made in his own day, suggesting its design was never fully replicated. Yet on Rhodes, artisans were building increasingly complex automata, singing birds, self-propelled carts, even a miniature theater with moving scenes. If Archimedes' spheres reached Rhodes through trade or scholarly exchange, local craftsmen had the skills to iterate on their design, blending his principles with Hipparchus' astronomy. The timeline raises fascinating possibilities. Imagine a Rhodian artisan studying one of Archimedes' original spheres, or more likely, a copy or description of it decades after his death. They might have recognized its potential but lacked the mathematical prowess to improve it. Then along comes Hipparchus, whose lunar theories could refine the device's accuracy. The result, a hybrid masterpiece merging Syracusan mechanics with Rhodian astronomy. This wouldn't be unusual in the Hellenistic world, where inventors often built on predecessors' work without attribution. What's tantalizing is how much we'll never know. Archimedes' own writings on planetariums, if they existed, vanished when the Library of Alexandria burned. The Antikythera mechanism might be the closest we'll ever get to his fabled spheres, not a direct descendant, but a distant relative shaped by the same intellectual currents. Its very existence suggests a forgotten lineage of celestial machines, each generation adding gears to a tradition that began with history's greatest polymath. That legacy, fragmented but undeniable, turns the mechanism from an aberration into a milestone, one link in a golden chain of engineering that stretched further into the past than we ever imagined. The Antikythera mechanism's creation wasn't the work of a lone genius, it was a symphony of minds, a collaboration between thinkers who charted the heavens and hands that shaped bronze into precision gears. Picture a workshop where parchment met hammer and chisel. A mathematician hunched over lunar calculations while artisans translated those numbers into gear ratios, each tooth filed to mirror celestial motion. This wasn't just craftsmanship, it was alchemy, turning abstract astronomy into tangible mechanics. The mathematician, perhaps a disciple of Hipparchus, would have provided tables of planetary positions and eclipse cycles, data painstakingly gathered from decades of stargazing. The metalworkers, trained in Rhodes' famed foundries, then wrestled these theories into physical form, their bronze gears becoming a language for the cosmos. This interdisciplinary dance mirrors later medieval clockmaker guilds, where theorists and artisans collaborated to track time with increasing accuracy. But the Antikythera team faced a far greater challenge, encoding the irregular rhythms of the universe into a handheld device. Where clockmakers worked with predictable, repeating cycles, these ancient engineers grappled with the moon's elliptical orbit, the planet's retrograde motions, and eclipse patterns spanning decades. Their solution, a differential gear system, reveals the depth of their teamwork. The mathematician understood the why. The moon speeds up at perigee, slows at apogee. The artisans devised the how, a pin sliding in a curved slot, forcing a secondary gear to mimic these subtle variations. The workshop's social structure might have resembled Rhodes' intellectual salons, where philosophers and craftsmen mingled under elite patronage. Wealthy sponsors, possibly shipowners needing navigational aids or temples seeking eclipse predictions, likely funded these projects. The artisans, though nameless today, would have been revered specialists, bronze smiths who knew how to alloy metal for durability, carve teeth that meshed without friction, and assemble mechanisms compact enough to fit in a wooden case. Their tools were simple by modern standards: drills powered by bowstrings, calipers for measurement, files finer than a fingernail. Yet their tolerances were astonishing, some gears accurate to within a fraction of a millimeter. What's striking is how this collaboration foreshadowed modern engineering. Like today's tech teams where coders and hardware engineers bridge software and silicon, the mechanism's creators merged two worlds. The mathematicians' calculations were the code, the gears the hardware. Without both, the device would have been either empty theory or beautiful but dumb metal. That synergy suggests a shared workspace, perhaps in Rhodes' library complex, where scholars could peer over shoulders as craftsmen tested prototypes. The medieval comparison holds another clue: secrecy. Just as clockmakers guarded trade secrets, Rhodian workshops likely kept techniques closely held. No surviving texts describe gear-cutting methods, yet the mechanism's precision speaks of standardized practices. This wasn't trial and error, it was a taught tradition, passed from master to apprentice. The silence of history, then, might not be accidental. These artisans weren't just building devices, they were preserving a competitive edge in a thriving market for celestial wonders. Yet for all their skill, the workshop's true brilliance lay in foresight. The mechanism wasn't static. Inscriptions show it was recalibrated over time as astronomical knowledge improved. This wasn't a one-off commission but a living project, updated like software today, proof that its creators saw it as part of an evolving conversation with the cosmos. In that sense, the workshop wasn't just a place, it was an idea that human hands, guided by human minds, could hold the universe in bronze. The inscriptions on the Antikythera mechanism aren't just labels, they're whispers from antiquity, a sprawling library of tiny Greek letters crammed into every available space. Over 3,500 characters have been painstakingly deciphered so far, etched onto bronze plates and gear housings like an ancient user manual fused with an astronomer's notebook. Some passages explain how to operate the dials, while others list celestial events or star positions, transforming the device from a mere calculator into a guided tour of the cosmos. But hidden within these minute inscriptions are two explosive clues: a dialect of Doric Greek rarely used in formal texts, and star catalogues that don't match any known Hellenistic records. Together, they're rewriting the story of where and for whom this marvel was created. The Doric dialect is the first fingerprint. Unlike the more common Attic or Koine Greek, Doric was spoken primarily in the Peloponnese, Crete, and crucially, Syracuse, Archimedes' hometown. This linguistic quirk suggests the mechanism's creators hailed from one of these regions, with northwest Greece and Sicily emerging as the strongest candidates. The inscriptions even include month names used only in Syracuse's calendar, like Foufnios and Aphantos, terms so localized they're like finding a street address carved into the bronze. But here's the twist: while the dialect points west, the star catalogues lean east. Some constellation names align with Babylonian astronomy texts, hinting at knowledge flowing from Mesopotamia to Rhodes or Alexandria. This duality paints a picture of a device born at a cultural crossroads where Greek, Egyptian, and Babylonian astronomy collided. Then there's the purpose of these inscriptions. They weren't just technical notes, they were meant to be read. Tiny letters spiral across eclipse prediction scales, explaining which celestial omens correlated with which regions. Eclipse in the west, misfortune for Carthage, or moon in the bull, fruitful harvest in Sicily. This transforms the mechanism from a scientific tool into something closer to an ancient political oracle, its gears spitting out prophecies for Mediterranean power players. One fragment even bears the phrase "golden little sphere," possibly a reference to the sun, a poetic flourish you'd expect from a philosopher, not an engineer. Most baffling is what's not written. Despite its complexity, the mechanism carries no maker's mark, no dedication to a patron, no hint of who commissioned it. The closest we get is a single engraved word, Dodona. This was the site of a famed Greek oracle in Epirus, where priests interpreted the rustling of oak leaves as divine messages. Was the mechanism linked to this sanctuary? A tool for priests to match celestial signs with earthly events? Or was Dodona a calibration marker, aligning the device with a specific latitude? The mystery deepens when you consider that epigraphers have identified at least 2 different handwriting styles in the inscriptions, suggesting multiple authors collaborated on the text, or that the mechanism was updated over decades by successive owners. Every deciphered character peels back another layer. Recently, researchers using 3-dimensional scanning uncovered a previously hidden section describing planetary motions in terms of color and brightness, details borrowed from Babylonian astronomy but filtered through Greek cosmology. Another passage lists the timing of Panhellenic games like the Nemean and Isthmian, alongside Olympiad cycles, as if the mechanism's owner needed to track both sacred and sporting events. These aren't random scribbles, they're the priorities and preoccupations of the ancient world etched in metal, a blend of science, politics, and religion that modern scholarship is only beginning to untangle. The inscriptions ultimately raise more questions than they answer. Why would a device with Sicilian dialect features end up on a ship sailing from Rhodes? How did Babylonian star lore find its way into a tool likely crafted in Greek workshops? And who were the people who wrote these texts, astronomers, priests, or perhaps something in between? The words on the Antikythera mechanism don't just guide us through its functions. They're fragments of a lost conversation, one that stretched across empires and disciplines, now waiting for us to piece together its full meaning. Frustratingly, the Antikythera mechanism we know today is just a ghost of its former self. Only about 1/3 of the original device has been recovered, leaving historians to piece together its full capabilities like detectives reconstructing a shattered vase. The surviving fragments, though incredible, are maddeningly incomplete. A maze of gears without their housing, dials missing pointers, inscriptions that trail off mid-sentence. It's as if someone tore pages from a revolutionary scientific manuscript and left only scattered paragraphs behind. Modern reconstructions reveal just how much we're missing. While the largest fragment contains the device's crown jewel, its differential gear system, entire gear trains, likely once calculated planetary positions now lost to time. The back of the mechanism is particularly haunting. A spiral dial meant to track the 4-year cycle of the Panhellenic Games sits beside empty spaces where other spirals, possibly predicting comets or planetary alignments, might have spun. Even the front face, with its zodiac and calendar scales, originally had moving planet indicators that vanished centuries ago. But in 2021, advanced imaging technology peeled back another layer of the mystery. Researchers using high-resolution 3-dimensional scanning discovered previously invisible text etched into the mechanism's fragments, words so faint they'd been camouflaged by corrosion for 2 millennia. These inscriptions weren't just labels, they were predictions. One passage detailed upcoming planetary positions, listing dates when Venus would appear as the morning star and Mercury would reach its greatest elongation from the Sun. Another mentioned eclipses tied to specific weather patterns, suggesting the device didn't just model celestial mechanics, but linked them to earthly events in ways that blurred science and divination. The most tantalizing clue from these hidden texts, references to Mars and other planets on parts of the mechanism where no corresponding gears survive. This implies the original device had additional assemblies, perhaps entire sections dedicated to planetary motion, that now exist only as echoes in these ghostly inscriptions. Teams at University College London used these textual clues to propose a groundbreaking reconstruction in 2022, adding 7 new gears to the known mechanism. Their model shows how planets might have moved on concentric rings, with each world's retrograde motion simulated through elegantly nested gear trains. Yet every answer spawns new questions. The UCL reconstruction assumes planets shared a single central axis, but some scholars argue independent pointers would better match descriptions in ancient texts. Then there's the enigma of power transmission. How did one-hand crank drive so many functions without gears jamming? A 2016 scan revealed a tiny, double-sided gear previously overlooked, hinting at ingenious solutions still waiting to be rediscovered. What's striking is how these modern investigations mirror the collaborative spirit of the mechanism's creators. Today's teams, combining historians, astronomers, and engineers, are unwittingly replicating the ancient workshop dynamic that first birthed the device. Each new fragment analyzed, each pixel of inscription deciphered, chips away at our 21st century arrogance, reminding us that technological sophistication didn't begin with silicon chips. The sea may still hold answers. Recent underwater surveys near the original wreck site detected bronze fragments buried under millennia of sediment. Could these be missing gears waiting to rewrite history once more? Until then, the Antikythera mechanism remains both a revelation and a riddle, a masterpiece with half its notes forever out of reach, challenging us to listen harder to the fragments that survive. The Hellenistic era wasn't just a golden age of philosophy and art. It was a time when the boundaries between science and magic blurred in spectacular fashion. Across the Eastern Mediterranean, rulers and scholars alike became obsessed with mechanical marvels that brought the cosmos down to human scale. Alexandria's legendary workshops buzzed with activity, where engineers like Hero created steam-powered automatons and temple doors that seemed to open by divine will. On Rhodes, artisans constructed singing mechanical birds and miniature theaters where tiny figures reenacted myths through hidden gears. Even the great libraries doubled as laboratories, where scrolls on astronomy sat beside blueprints for water clocks and geared astrolabes. This was a culture intoxicated by the idea that human hands could replicate the workings of the universe itself. But nowhere was this obsession more evident than in the field of astronomy. Hellenistic scholars didn't just study the stars, they sought to capture their movements in bronze and wood. Hipparchus's star catalogue mapped over 1,000 celestial bodies with unprecedented precision, while mathematicians like Apollonius developed the epicycle theory to explain planetary motion. These weren't abstract exercises, they fueled a thriving industry of celestial instruments. Smaller versions of the Antikythera mechanism likely adorned wealthy homes, their bronze dials turning as dinner guests marveled at the mechanical heavens. Public sundials grew increasingly sophisticated, some equipped with adjustable plates to account for seasonal changes. Even warfare felt this technological wave. Archimedes' legendary claw machines defending Syracuse weren't just weapons, but expressions of a culture that saw engineering as the highest art. The contrast with Rome couldn't be starker. As the Republic expanded, its priorities shifted from innovation to consolidation, where Greek scientists asked, "How does the universe work?" Roman engineers focused on, "How can we govern it?" Their brilliance lay in practical infrastructure: roads, aqueducts, concrete, not celestial models. The few mechanical wonders that reached Rome, like Archimedes' captured planetariums, became curiosities in aristocratic villas rather than inspirations for new inventions. By the 1st century AD, even the geared astrolabe, once a common navigational tool, had largely disappeared from Mediterranean ships. Some historians argue this wasn't decline but different values. Rome's empire thrived on standardization, not experimentation. But the consequence was undeniable. The Antikythera Mechanisms' secrets didn't fade because they were forgotten. They became irrelevant to a world that had stopped asking certain questions. What makes this divergence haunting is how close the two worlds came to merging. Cicero himself marveled at Greek astronomical devices, while Posidonius taught Roman elites in Rhodes. Had Rome embraced rather than plundered Hellenistic science, the Industrial Revolution might have begun in the 1st century BC. Instead, the Antikythera mechanism became a time capsule, its gears frozen not by corrosion alone, but by a changing cultural tide that valued conquest over curiosity. The sea preserved what the land abandoned, a relic from an age when humanity dared to build its own stars. Centuries after the gears of the Antikythera mechanism fell silent, another civilization was pushing the boundaries of mechanical engineering to dazzling new heights. In 9th century Baghdad, at the height of the Islamic Golden Age, inventors like the Banu Musa brothers were crafting intricate geared devices that would have felt eerily familiar to the mechanism's creators. Their masterpiece, the castle clock, a towering water-powered marvel that not only told time but displayed zodiac signs, moved miniature statues, and even chimed with automated flutes. Here, in the bustling heart of the Abbasid Caliphate, the legacy of Hellenistic engineering found surprising new life. What makes this parallel so startling is the gap between these innovations and their eventual reappearance in Europe. While Baghdad scholars were building celestial globes with gear trains in the 800s, medieval Europe wouldn't see comparable technology until the great cathedral clocks of the 1400s. Why did this knowledge stall for 600 years? The answer may lie in the fragile threads of cultural exchange. Greek scientific texts, including works by Archimedes and Hipparchus, had been translated into Arabic during the Abbasid era, preserved in Baghdad's legendary House of Wisdom while Europe descended into the so-called Dark Ages. Islamic engineers didn't just copy these ideas, they revolutionized them, combining Greek geometry with Persian water-powered mechanisms and Indian mathematics to create devices far beyond anything the ancient Mediterranean had imagined. Yet the trail of transmission remains frustratingly faint. Some historians point to Al-Andalus, Islamic Spain, as a critical bridge, where Muslim, Jewish, and Christian scholars worked side by side in cities like Toledo and Cordoba. Here, Arabic texts were translated into Latin, slowly filtering into European monasteries. Others argue the key lay in Sicily, where Norman rulers employed Arab engineers to maintain advanced water clocks and astrolabes. One tantalizing clue comes from the notebooks of Renaissance genius Leonardo da Vinci, who sketched designs for gear mechanisms strikingly similar to those in Arabic manuscripts, though whether he encountered these directly or reinvented them remains hotly debated. The contrast in cultural attitudes tells another story. While medieval European clocks emphasized religious symbolism, like the doomsday clocks counting down to Judgment Day, Islamic timekeepers celebrated scientific precision. The castle clock wasn't just functional, it was a cosmological model, much like the Antikythera mechanism. This philosophical difference may explain why Europe's early clockmakers focused on striking bells rather than simulating planetary motion. Only when scholars like Gerard of Cremona translated Arabic works in the 1200s did European craftsmen begin grasping the full potential of geared astronomy. What's heartbreaking is how much was lost in these slow handoffs. When Mongol armies sacked Baghdad in 1258, the Tigris reportedly ran black with ink from destroyed manuscripts. The fragments that survived suggest Islamic engineers had approached concepts like programmable automata and mechanical calendars, ideas that wouldn't resurface until the Enlightenment. The castle clock itself vanished, known only from descriptions by scholars like Al-Jazari, yet its ghost lingers in unexpected places. When a 13th century Persian astronomer described a geared device predicting lunar eclipses, was he channeling the Antikythera tradition through Arabic translations of Hipparchus? The gears turn full circle, leaving us to wonder how many other bridges between ancient and modern science still lie buried in the sands of time. The brilliance of the Antikythera mechanism didn't just fade, it was swallowed by a perfect storm of war, shifting priorities, and the slow unraveling of an entire intellectual tradition. Within a few generations of its creation, the knowledge required to build such devices slipped through the fingers of history like sand. The first blow came with the Roman conquest of Greece. Where Hellenistic rulers had lavished funds on universities and libraries, Rome's elite prized practical engineering over abstract science. A well-built aqueduct impressed them far more than a bronze gadget predicting eclipses. This cultural shift wasn't accidental. Rome's expansion thrived on standardization, uniform roads, centralized administration, and military discipline left little room for the playful experimentation that had birthed the mechanism. Surviving texts from the period reveal a telling pattern. Greek scholars who once debated celestial mechanics now found themselves designing siege engines or decorative fountains for wealthy patrons. Political turmoil delivered the next crushing blow. Rhodes, the likely birthplace of the mechanism's technology, was sacked by Cassius in 43 BC as punishment for supporting Julius Caesar's assassins. Its famed workshops were plundered, its scholars scattered. Around the same time, Alexandria's great library, the other great beacon of Hellenistic learning, suffered a series of devastating fires, the most infamous during Julius Caesar's occupation in 48 BC. Though the library didn't vanish overnight, each blaze consumed irreplaceable texts, including works by Hipparchus and Archimedes that might have explained the principles behind devices like the Antikythera mechanism. What's often overlooked is how much knowledge lived only in those scrolls. Greek science wasn't just theory, it was hands-on craftsmanship, passed orally from master to apprentice in workshops that doubled as classrooms. When those chains were broken, entire disciplines evaporated. The final nail came with Christianity's rise. By the 4th century AD, the Church viewed pagan science with increasing suspicion. The cosmos was no longer a puzzle to be solved, but a divine creation to be revered. When Emperor Theodosius banned pagan rituals in 391, he didn't just shutter temples. He dismantled the intellectual infrastructure that had supported astronomy for centuries. The famed Serapeum of Alexandria, a daughter library and center of learning, was razed by a Christian mob. Meanwhile, practical needs shifted. Roman navigators relied on stars and landmarks, not mechanical calculators. Eclipse predictions, once vital for agricultural and religious calendars, mattered less in an empire governed by fixed feast days. What makes this disappearance so haunting is how close Europe came to preserving this knowledge. In Constantinople, Byzantine scholars safeguarded Greek scientific texts, but their focus was preservation, not innovation. Meanwhile, the Islamic world picked up the torch. 9th century Baghdad scholars translated Archimedes and Ptolemy, building astrolabes that surpassed Hellenistic design. Yet without the workshop traditions of Rhodes or the cross-pollination of Greek and Egyptian astronomy, even they couldn't fully reconstruct the mechanism's secrets. The gears didn't just stop turning, they were melted down, repurposed, forgotten. The greatest tragedy isn't that the Antikythera mechanism was unique. It's that it likely wasn't. The corroded fragments of the Antikythera mechanism could only hint at its former glory until modern researchers rebuilt it from the ground up. Historians like Michael Wright, a former curator at London Science Museum, spent decades piecing together its secrets, crafting working replicas that bring this ancient computer back to life. Wright's painstaking reconstructions, built using traditional tools and techniques, revealed something astonishing. The device wasn't just an astronomical calculator, it was a precision eclipse predictor, its gears encoding a 223-month cycle known as the Saros dial. This wasn't guesswork, it was math carved in bronze, a celestial rhythm the Greeks had observed but shouldn't have been able to mechanize so flawlessly. What's remarkable about Wright's approach is how he mirrored the original creator's process. Instead of relying solely on high-tech scans, he used hand-filed brass gears and trial-and-error adjustments, just as the ancient craftsmen would have. His models demonstrated how turning the main crank set off a cascade of movements, pointers sweeping across zodiac scales, tiny orbs representing the sun and moon aligning with eerie accuracy. One of his most striking discoveries was how the Saros dial worked. A pin sliding along a spiral groove tracked eclipse dates across decades, with inscriptions warning of omens tied to specific celestial events. This wasn't just science, it was a fusion of mechanics and mysticism where mathematics met mythology. Meanwhile, the International Antikythera Mechanism research project took reconstruction into the digital age. Using high-resolution X-ray tomography, the team peered through layers of corrosion to map previously hidden inscriptions and gear trains. Their virtual models uncovered subtle details earlier scholars had missed, like a tiny subsidiary dial that refined eclipse predictions by accounting for lunar anomalies. The team's findings, published in 2016, revealed the mechanism's true complexity. Not 37 gears as previously thought, but at least 70, each precisely calibrated to mirror the irregularities of the cosmos. Perhaps the most groundbreaking reconstruction came from University College London in 2021. Their model, based on newly deciphered inscriptions, proposed a dazzling front display with concentric rings for all 5 known planets, a feature no surviving fragments could confirm. The team's design used nested tubes to simulate planetary motions, including the elusive retrograde paths that had baffled ancient astronomers. Watching their models' pointers glide across the zodiac, it's hard not to feel a shiver of recognition. This was the ancient world's answer to a planetarium, a handheld universe spinning with quiet precision. These reconstructions do more than solve technical puzzles. They rewrite history. Every working model proves the mechanism wasn't a fluke but the product of a sophisticated engineering tradition. Wright's handcrafted replicas show it could have been built with existing Hellenistic tools, while digital models reveal layers of complexity we're still deciphering. Together, they transform the Antikythera mechanism from a curiosity into a touchstone, connecting us across millennia to minds who saw the heavens not as a mystery, but as a clockwork puzzle waiting to be solved. For centuries, the Antikythera Mechanism's inner workings remained as mysterious as the celestial cycles it tracked until 2016, when a team of researchers cracked open its secrets with technology the original creators could never have imagined. Using a technique called microfocus computed tomography, scientists bombarded the corroded fragments with high-resolution X-rays, slicing them into virtual layers thinner than a human hair. What emerged from those scans was nothing short of revolutionary, a labyrinth of previously hidden gears and inscriptions, preserved beneath the crust of corrosion like a time capsule waiting to be opened. The most astonishing revelation lay in the gears themselves. Earlier studies had identified 37 components, but the advanced imaging exposed nearly double that number, 70 finely crafted wheels interlocking with mathematical precision. Among these, researchers spotted a tiny, double-sided gear just 14 millimeters in diameter, its teeth meshing with 2 others in an arrangement that mirrored the irregular motions of the planets. This was the smoking gun. The mechanism didn't just track planetary positions, it simulated their retrograde motion, those bewildering moments when Mars or Jupiter appear to reverse course in the night sky. Until this discovery, scholars had only guessed at this capability. Greek astronomers like Apollonius of Perga had theorized retrograde motion as early as 240 BC, describing it through complex epicycle circles upon circles that accounted for the planet's looping path. But to see those theories rendered in bronze was something else entirely. The X-rays revealed how the mechanism's creator had ingeniously translated abstract geometry into physical mechanics. A pin and slot mechanism connected to the double-sided gear introduced subtle speed variations, making the planetary pointers slow, pause, and backtrack against the zodiac dial, exactly as the naked eye would perceive it from Earth. Yet the scans revealed more than engineering brilliance. Hidden inscriptions etched in letters barely a millimeter tall crowded the mechanism's inner surfaces like marginal notes in an ancient textbook. One passage, deciphered along a surviving gear housing, listed planetary positions with color-coded descriptions: golden for Venus, fiery for Mars. Another, nestled near the retrograde assembly, contained fragments of eclipse predictions paired with weather omens, hinting that the device served as both calculator and divination tool. Most poignant was a set of calibration marks near the main drive wheel, suggesting the mechanism wasn't static. Its owners adjusted it over time as astronomical knowledge evolved. The 2016 findings didn't just confirm the Antikythera Mechanisms' sophistication, they shattered assumptions about ancient technological limits. Here was a device that didn't merely approximate celestial movements, but replicated their quirks and complexities with near-modern accuracy. Modern planetariums, with their digital projectors and precision motors, achieve similar results through vastly different means. Yet the brilliance of the mechanism lies in its analog elegance. No electricity, no silicon chips, just bronze, ingenuity, and an unshakable belief that the universe could be held in one's hands. Perhaps the most humbling realization was how much we'd underestimated its creators. Earlier scholars had dismissed the mechanism as a fluke, a lone masterpiece with no peers. But the CT scans revealed tool marks and design choices pointing to standardized craftsmanship, evidence this wasn't a one-off experiment but part of a broader tradition. Those hidden inscriptions, with their technical jargon and calibration notes, read like pages from a workshop manual, suggesting whole schools of artisans trained in this arcane art. What the X-rays couldn't show was just as telling. Gaps in the gear trains hinted at missing assemblies, perhaps calculating comets or planetary alignments we've yet to decipher. The scans peeled back one layer of the mystery, only to expose deeper questions. How many other devices like this once existed? What other secrets might lie undiscovered in museum basements or Mediterranean shipwrecks? The mechanism, even in its fragmentary state, refuses to be fully known, a bronze enigma still guarding pieces of its story 2 millennia after it sank beneath the waves. In 2021, artificial intelligence peeled back another layer of the Antikythera Mechanisms' mysteries, exposing details so faint they'd eluded human eyes for over a century. Researchers at University College London trained machine learning algorithms on high-resolution scans of the fragments, programming them to recognize the ghostly imprints of letters worn away by 2 millennia of corrosion. What emerged from the digital shadows was revolutionary, previously invisible inscriptions describing the movements of Venus and Saturn, complete with their cyclical patterns and color associations in ancient astronomy. This wasn't just another gear uncovered. It was proof the mechanism's creators had encoded the full solar system into their bronze masterpiece. The AI's discoveries revealed meticulous tables tracking Venus' 8-year pentagrammic cycle, where the planet returns to nearly the same position in the night sky every 8 years. Even more astonishing were references to Saturn's 29.5-year orbit, a celestial rhythm so slow it would require gears upon gears to calculate mechanically. These findings shattered previous assumptions about the device's limitations. earlier reconstructions had focused mainly on lunar and solar cycles, with planetary displays considered speculative at best. But the newly revealed texts painted a picture of a machine far more ambitious than anyone imagined, its dials and pointers likely extending well beyond the surviving fragments. What made these revelations particularly groundbreaking was how they aligned with long-lost astronomical traditions. The color coding of planets, gold for Venus, pale for Saturn, matched descriptions in Babylonian cuneiform tablets, suggesting the mechanism's creators blended Greek mechanics with Mesopotamian observational data. The AI even detected numerical sequences corresponding to planetary period relations, complex ratios ancient astronomers used to predict celestial events. One such sequence, 377 synodic periods of Venus equaling 584 solar years, wouldn't be formally documented until Ptolemy's work centuries later. The implications ripple through history. If the mechanism tracked multiple planets with this level of precision, its gear trains must have been staggeringly intricate, far beyond the 37 confirmed components. Researchers now theorize additional assemblies, now lost, may have simulated Mercury, Mars, and Jupiter as well. This would require compound gear systems capable of handling multiple ratios simultaneously, a technical challenge modern engineers still find daunting when recreating the device. Most compelling is how these AI-assisted discoveries rewrite the narrative of ancient science. The Venus and Saturn cycles weren't just astronomical facts, they were threads in a grander design. By incorporating them, the mechanism's creators demonstrated an understanding of the cosmos as an interconnected system, where planetary motions influenced everything from eclipse patterns to seasonal changes. The faintest inscriptions, resurrected by 21st century technology, whisper that this wasn't just a calculator, it was a philosopher's stone in bronze, turning celestial rhythms into tangible knowledge. Yet for every question answered, new mysteries emerge. The AI detected partial references to something called the little golden sphere near the Venus inscriptions, a term that might describe an actual moving part representing the planet. Other fragmented phrases hint at color-changing indicators, perhaps stones or glass beads that shifted hue to represent planetary phases. These details suggest the mechanism wasn't just functional but theatrical, its celestial dance as much a spectacle as a scientific tool. The real shock lies in recognizing how much we've underestimated ancient innovation. When an algorithm can uncover secrets invisible to the naked eye, it forces us to wonder what other marvels from antiquity still hide in plain sight, waiting for the right technology to reveal them. The Antikythera mechanism continues to evolve before our eyes, its fragments yielding fresh wonders with every new tool we bring to bear. In that sense, it remains as dynamic as the cosmos it modeled, always one discovery away from rewriting history again. The Antikythera mechanism doesn't just challenge our understanding of ancient technology, it's become a lightning rod for wilder theories, often lumped into the controversial category of out-of-place artifacts or OOP arts. These are objects that seem impossibly advanced for their time, sparking claims they're proof of lost civilizations, alien contact, or even time travelers meddling in history. And at first glance, the mechanism fits the bill, a device with gears finer than a Swiss watch, predicting celestial events centuries before Europe's clockmakers matched its precision. But before we entertain ancient astronauts or Atlantean super-scientists, let's unpack why this artifact is far more fascinating and human than those myths suggest. Skeptics of conventional history point to the mechanism's complexity as evidence it couldn't have been created in 200 BC. They argue its differential gear, a component not officially reinvented until the 1800s, must be the work of a forgotten advanced culture. Some even cite vague parallels with the mythical Clock of Atlantis described in esoteric texts, but here's the problem with that logic: the mechanism isn't an isolated anomaly. Its design aligns perfectly with known Greek astronomy and metallurgy. Hipparchus's lunar theories are literally etched into its gears, while its bronze alloy matches other Hellenistic artifacts. This wasn't magic, it was the pinnacle of a technological tradition that flourished in Rhodes and Alexandria, one we're still piecing together. What about the lack of similar surviving devices? Critics call this the lonely genius paradox. If the Greeks could build such marvels, where are the others? The answer lies in the fragile nature of history. Bronze was perpetually recycled in antiquity, especially during wars or economic crises. Most gears ended up melted into coins or weapons, while fragile astronomical texts perished in fires. Yet tantalizing clues suggest the mechanism had company. Cicero wrote of multiple celestial globes in Roman villas, and recent excavations in Crete revealed a 2,000-year-old geared calendar fragment, proof such devices weren't unique. The real irony of labeling the Antikythera mechanism an OOP art is that it diminishes its true wonder. This wasn't some alien relic dropped into history. It was the product of human curiosity, built by scholars and artisans who observed the heavens with naked eyes and recorded their motions with painstaking precision. Every gear tooth, every inscription reflects centuries of accumulated knowledge, from Babylonian eclipse records to Egyptian calendar systems. The mechanism's brilliance lies not in defying explanation, but in embodying the best of what the ancient world could achieve when science, craftsmanship, and imagination collided. So why does the OOP art narrative persist? Partly because it's seductive to believe in lone miracles rather than messy, incremental progress, but also because we've underestimated the ancient world for so long. For centuries, historians assumed the Greeks were pure philosophers, not tinkerers, until the mechanism forced us to reconsider. Now, as researchers uncover evidence of geared astrolabes and automata in Hellenistic texts, a clearer picture emerges, one where devices like this weren't impossibilities but inevitabilities. That's the real lesson here. The Antikythera mechanism doesn't need extraterrestrials or time travelers to be awe-inspiring. Its power comes from being unmistakably, gloriously human, a testament to what happens when brilliant minds turn their gaze skyward and dare to ask, how can we build that? In that light, it's not out of place at all. It's exactly where it belongs, at the crossroads of genius and grit, reminding us that the past was never as simple as we thought. Of course, the Antikythera mechanism's sophistication has inevitably sparked whispers of the extraordinary theories that reach beyond conventional history into realms of ancient astronauts and drowned civilizations. Some suggest it's a relic of Atlantis, a fragment of a lost superculture whose technological prowess dwarfed even our own. Others propose extraterrestrial tutors, pointing to its precision as evidence that early humans couldn't possibly have conceived such advanced mechanics without cosmic intervention. These ideas often draw parallels to other so-called out-of-place artifacts, like the pyramids of Giza or the Nazca lines, monuments that fringe theorists argue were either built by or with the help of otherworldly visitors. There's a seductive allure to these narratives, the notion that our ancestors had help from starfarers or access to forgotten knowledge taps into a deep human fascination with hidden truths and grand conspiracies. And let's be honest, it's thrilling to imagine a bronzed, sandaled Archimedes receiving blueprints from a glowing alien visitor, rather than painstakingly working out gear ratios under lamplight. But the reality, while perhaps less cinematic, is far more compelling. Take the Atlantis theory first. Proponents argue that the mechanism's complexity implies a lineage of lost engineering, a tradition preserved only in cryptic myths. Yet the device's inscriptions and materials root it firmly in the Hellenistic world. Its Doric dialect, Corinthian-style lettering, and even the alloy of its bronze all align with known Greek craftsmanship. If this were Atlantean, why would it mirror Hipparchus's lunar theories so precisely? Why would its eclipse predictions follow Babylonian data? The simpler explanation is that it's a product of its time, albeit an astonishingly advanced one. The alien hypothesis, meanwhile, stumbles on a different problem: human ingenuity. We know the Greeks were obsessed with automata, mechanical birds, self-moving statues, even primitive steam engines. Hero of Alexandria's inventions proved they were capable of astonishing mechanical feats. The Antikythera mechanism isn't a bolt from the blue. It's the culmination of centuries of astronomical observation and metalworking skill. The differential gear, often cited as impossibly advanced, is really just a clever application of existing knowledge, a testament to what happens when brilliant minds focus on a problem for generations. That said, the mechanism does share something with these fringe theories: a sense of wonder. Whether you believe it was crafted by Rhodian artisans or gifted by star travelers, its existence forces us to reconsider what ancient civilizations were truly capable of. Maybe that's the real magic here, not that it defies explanation, but that it fits so perfectly into a narrative of human curiosity and persistence. After all, isn't it just as extraordinary to think that 2,000 years ago, someone looked at the night sky and thought, "I can build that"? The echoes of the Antikythera mechanism's ingenuity ripple far beyond its 2,000-year-old bronze gears. Its legacy quietly shaped the very foundations of modern computing and precision engineering. When Charles Babbage sketched his difference engine in the 1820s, he envisioned a mechanical marvel capable of performing complex calculations, a concept that seemed revolutionary at the time. Yet, unbeknownst to him, the ancient Greeks had already built a device operating on strikingly similar principles. The mechanism's differential gear system, once thought to be a 19th-century innovation, predates Babbage's work by nearly 2 millennia, serving as a silent blueprint for the marriage of mathematics and machinery. Side-by-side comparisons with 18th-century clockwork reveal uncanny parallels. Take the elaborate astronomical clocks of Prague or Strasbourg, their intricate dials tracking lunar phases and planetary positions with ornate beauty. While these medieval marvels dazzled audiences with their complexity, they lacked the Antikythera mechanism's computational sophistication. The Greeks had achieved something far more profound, a device that didn't just display time but modeled celestial mechanics as a dynamic system. Where later clocks relied on simple gear trains to chime the hours, the mechanism's pin and slot assemblies could simulate the moon's elliptical orbit, a feat European clockmakers wouldn't replicate until the Renaissance. The bridge to modern computing becomes even clearer when examining analog machines of the early 20th century. Vannevar Bush's differential analyzer, a room-sized mechanical computer built in 1931, used rotating shafts and gears to solve differential equations, a direct descendant of the same principles embedded in the Antikythera mechanism. Even the terminology overlaps. Both devices integrate motion through physical interactions, translating mathematical relationships into tangible movement. This wasn't coincidence. It was the rediscovery of a lost approach to problem solving, one that had been submerged beneath the Mediterranean for centuries. What sets the mechanism apart is its programmability. Unlike static clocks or single-purpose calculators, its dials could be reset for different epochs, its eclipse predictions adjusted as new astronomical data emerged. This adaptability mirrors the very essence of modern computing, the idea that a machine can be reconfigured to solve diverse problems. Historian Derek de Solla Price recognized this kinship, calling the device a philosopher's guide to the galaxy that functioned like a mechanical Turing machine, processing inputs to generate celestial outputs. Yet the most poignant lesson lies in how this ancient artifact reframes our technological timeline. For centuries, the history of computation was told as a linear march from abacus to silicon chip, with the Antikythera mechanism dismissed as an anomaly. Now we see it differently, not as a dead end, but as a lost fork in the road, proof that the seeds of computational thinking were planted far earlier than we imagined. Every time a modern algorithm predicts a solar eclipse or models planetary orbits, it unknowingly walks in the footsteps of those Hellenistic gears, spinning a thread that connects the observatories of ancient Rhodes to the quantum computers of today. The mechanism's true legacy isn't just in what it achieved, but in the questions it forces us to ask. How many other leaps forward have been forgotten? And what might we rediscover next? Even after decades of study, the Antikythera mechanism guards its deepest secrets like a locked celestial vault. For every puzzle piece researchers fit into place, new questions emerge, haunting gaps in our understanding that keep historians awake at night. Perhaps the most tantalizing mystery, whether this device truly stood alone. The sheer craftsmanship behind it suggests an established tradition, not a one-off miracle. Cicero's accounts mention similar celestial spheres in Roman villas, while ancient texts from Alexandria describe moving models of the heavens gifted to foreign kings. Could warehouses of Silt or Mediterranean shipwrecks still hide these lost siblings? Recent discoveries hint at possibilities like that enigmatic geared calendar fragment found in a Cretan shipwreck, its teeth eerily reminiscent of the Antikythera's design. Then there's the agonizing question of why such brilliance vanished from history. How could technology this advanced, capable of predicting eclipses and modeling planetary motion, disappear for over 1,000 years? The answer isn't as simple as library fires or invading armies. It's about shifting priorities. When Rome absorbed Greece, the demand for lavish automata and philosophical toys gave way to practical engineering: roads, aqueducts, weapons. Astronomical gadgets became curiosities for elite collectors rather than tools for discovery. Knowledge fractured. The mathematicians who understood the theories rarely spoke the language of the artisans who built the gears. Without this crucial collaboration, the tradition withered. But the most electrifying possibility, that the mechanism we've found wasn't the first. Its precision implies earlier prototypes, trial models where the math and mechanics were refined. Could Archimedes' fabled spheres have been stepping stones to this masterpiece? Some researchers speculate that older wrecks near Syracuse or Rhodes might hold these evolutionary ancestors, cruder devices with similar ambitions. Underwater archaeologist Brendan Foley's recent surveys near Antikythera using robotic submersibles have detected metallic anomalies that could signal undiscovered artifacts. Every unexplored shadow on the seafloor whispers potential. The search for answers has entered a thrilling new phase. Advanced sonar mapping now scans the Mediterranean's depths for telltale concentrations of bronze and wood, while AI combs through museum archives for overlooked clues in ancient inventories. One team recently used neutron imaging on a suspiciously heavy stone found near the original wreck site, hoping to reveal hidden gears beneath its calcified surface. Meanwhile, historians scour newly deciphered Herculaneum scrolls, searching for any passing mention of geared astronomy. What keeps the hunt alive is the growing realization that the Antikythera mechanism wasn't an endpoint, but a glimpse into a forgotten technological trajectory. Its very existence proves that 2,000 years ago, humanity was capable of imagining and building machines that blurred the line between tools and magic. Every unanswered question isn't just a gap in history. It's an invitation to rediscover a world far more ingenious than we ever dreamed. For centuries, the question of who crafted the Antikythera mechanism has divided scholars into opposing camps, each with compelling evidence. On one side stands Hipparchus, the genius astronomer of Rhodes whose lunar theories are etched into the mechanism's very gears. The device's pinpoint accuracy in tracking the moon's elliptical orbit mirrors his groundbreaking calculations so precisely that it feels like a mechanical translation of his notebooks. Then there's Posidonius, the philosopher-scientist whose legendary celestial sphere, described by Cicero, matches the mechanism's functions down to the smallest detail. His Rhodes-based workshop and knack for blending theory with hands-on experimentation make him an equally plausible candidate. But here's the twist: these theories aren't mutually exclusive. The mechanism might well be the product of both minds, a collaboration across generations, where Hipparchus's math met Posidonius's craftsmanship in a perfect storm of innovation. What's undeniable is how this unassuming lump of bronze has shattered our understanding of ancient technology. For decades, historians painted the Greeks as pure philosophers, their brilliance confined to parchment and abstract thought. The mechanism forces us to rewrite that story. Here was a culture capable of precision engineering that wouldn't be matched until the Renaissance. A society where astronomy wasn't just observed but built, where the cosmos could be held in your hands. Its differential gear alone rewinds the timeline of human ingenuity by 1800 years, proving that the seeds of the Industrial Revolution were planted far earlier than we ever imagined. This isn't just about one device, it's about the fragile threads of knowledge that bind history together. The mechanism's loss and rediscovery reminds us how easily brilliance can be erased by war, time, or simple neglect. How many other marvels lie buried in shipwrecks or sealed in forgotten vaults? Every gear, every inscription whispers that the ancient world was far more interconnected, more daring than our textbooks ever suggested. So now it's your turn. Who do you think built the Antikythera mechanism? A lone genius like Archimedes working in secret, a team of Rhodian craftsmen refining designs over decades? Or someone whose name has been lost entirely? Drop your theories in the comments, and if you've ever stared up at the night sky wondering how it all works, hit subscribe. Because this story isn't over. With every new scan, every dive into the Mediterranean's depths, we're piecing together a puzzle that's still missing half its parts. The answers are out there, waiting to turn history on its head once more.